we've been talking so much about how investors are effectively banking on policy in terms of trying to figure out where this is all headed and what to do about it, whether to stay on the sidelines, whether to put money in if you have any cash, or frankly, and I've talked to some other people who even with the down draft that we've been on, want to get out because they think the downdraft is going to continue. What do you think?
Well, it does depend a lot, Andrew, on the actual policy that is created, and you've been discussing it, robustly. It has to be done in a way that affects individual wages, it affects small and medium-sized businesses, and it affects governments. And the plan that's out there right now actually doesn't cover all of that, and quite frankly, Citi Private Bank doesn't think it's actually big enough. We've calculated that you need about $3.75 trillion in order to do all of that, in order to take us out about 120 days, which is a period of time when the virus is going to have its greatest impact on the country and when the most number of people are going to be at home. We estimate that total unemployment could reach, for a very brief time, 25% of the working population. And what's probably not known by most of the people watching is that a typical small business may only have 45 to 60 days of cash on hand. So one of the reasons why this is a different crisis is because we need to make these decisions now, and as you've talked about, really bridge the gap between here, here in the next several months.
David, let me ask you a question about the market. And one proxy for the market, or at least one data point, I don't know if it's a fair data point or not, is to look at unemployment in this country. Right now, the market is still in a sort of 2016-ish range. I want to call it range, but relative to where we were in 2016. Unemployment at that point was 5%. Jim Bullard over the weekend said he believed that unemployment in this country could go to 30%, which would be way beyond anything we have seen in the past generation. Even if after policy measures were put in place, we were at 10%, that would put us back to 2010. Is it fair to use that data point to think about the stock market?
In some ways it is, and in some ways it isn't. It's a very different type of recession that we've got right now. If the government steps in and gives the types of support we've been talking about, then you can imagine a far more rapid recovery after this type of recession, because in effect what we're doing is shutting things down and opening things back up. People before they came into this situation actually were in reasonable shape. I mean, unemployment, like you said, 3.7%. The key is actually making that bridge. And we think that it can actually be done. And if it's done well, then you can have a rapid recovery. But you're absolutely right. Unemployment at the end, no matter what happens, is going to be way higher than when we went into this. And the degree of stimulus is going to be incredibly important. We're optimistic, actually, that if a very, very large package happens and it is implemented very quickly, that it actually can work.
I mean, Andrew, at the depth of the financial crisis, what was the S&P down at, what was it, 700? Maybe we need to get there, in your view, before we really have a,
666.
I'm not saying in my view, I'm saying people have looked at...
I know, but do you think would that finally get to the point where we're getting what we deserve, do you think, at that point? Or still maybe go down 50%?
I don't think we're getting what we're...
I know, I heard you. I heard you. But how about 666? What was it? 666? Where are we? 2,300? Would that might be representative of where it should be with 30% unemployment, or still no?
No.
If you thought unemployment was there, I mean, I can't even. I have to tell you, when I saw the 30% number, I couldn't fathom it.
666 is it? Well,
not a target for me.
How long would it be 30%, Andrew? It's not like it gets there because of underlying. I mean, who knows how this comes back? And when, I mean, there's already people saying that the cure is worse than the disease itself. But I don't
absolutely.
know.
And by the way, I think that's very true. I think it's very possible that the cure is way worse than the disease. And I think that one of the things that I did spend a lot of time talking to people over the weekend about is just how quickly you can get this economy back moving. And I think that there's going to be a moral trade-off conversation in this country that's going to take place as early as this week about that very issue. Because when you think about, even frankly, both the health and deaths of despair issues that have already arisen, not because of this crisis, but because of some of the economic issues in our country before, I think people are going to start to have that conversation.
They've already had
thought the opioid crisis was bad. That's a dry run for what's going to be coming.
I'm worried. I think you talk to too many people over the weekend sometimes. I don't know. I didn't talk to that many people over the weekend. I think you're talking to too many people over the weekend sometimes. But anyway.
David, what do you think?
I spent the weekend with my phone glued to my ear.
I know.
Well,
reporting.
I think we're looking at this, should it go back to this or that? The market is very good at valuing what is going to happen in the future, and I think that we're talking here about a very temporary situation. Like Andrew was talking about, whether the cost and of this mitigation is fair or not. That's fine, but we've already decided on that policy in a sense, which is that we are going to effectively go through a rolling lockdown across the country. There has not been a centralized federal policy about this, and there doesn't look like there is going to be one. And absent that, we are going to have to do income substitution. We are going to have to bridge businesses. We are going to have to support states. That's almost a foregone conclusion. And so we have to accept that reality right now. That debate is going to happen on the next crisis that we have. In this crisis, we actually have to write those checks. And that's why this bill has to be passed relatively quickly, because the difficulty, the logistics of actually doing it is very, very hard. The other thing that we haven't talked about this morning is the degree to which this disease is going to continue going on for the next several months. It's not as if it's going to stop tomorrow or a month from now or 2 months from now. It's going to go through a complete cycle. And that cycle, we've calculated, is a minimum of 90 to 120 days before you might get some relief into the summertime.